So breakfast, guys, if you don't eat it, I understand a lot of us are on the go, but that's not an excuse. It just comes down to what you want. Do you want increased energy? Do you want to feel stabilized with your mood all day? Do you want to feel good in your body? Like, if you want those things, we just got to suck it up and eat the breakfast.
Welcome to the Marriage and Motherhood podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Perda. As a marriage coach who's married with 3 kids, I know how much parenthood could change a marriage. If flirting, laughing, and having fun together feels like a thing of the past, then I'm here to teach you that marriage doesn't have to feel so hard with your parents, and your marriage can thrive even when you're in the season of raising kids. Whether you're in a good place in your marriage and you just want to continue growing together, or you're wondering if you even like your spouse anymore, this podcast has something for you. Join me here each week as we dive into what it takes to help your marriage grow, and maybe even do a 180. You'll learn ways to handle conflict better, bring that spark back into your relationship, as well as learn how to improve other areas of your life from my lovely guest experts. Are you ready for the next stage of your life in marriage? Let's dive in. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Marriage and Motherhood podcast. This episode, I have one of my favorite health people to follow, and it is Casey Everhart. She's incredible. I actually met her in real life at a Mama Has Goals event. We're both keynote speakers, and we're going to be talking about something that I recently discovered that has such a huge impact on my physical well-being, my mental well-being, and I'm so excited to dive into it with Casey so that you can learn from her and just fall in love with her too. So welcome, Casey. Thank you for being a guest on here. I'm so thrilled to have you. Can you tell the listeners who you are, what you do, and why you start this?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. So like Michelle said, my name is Casey Everhart. I am a personal trainer, nutrition coach. I went to school for health and human performance. That's what I had my master's degree in. And I really fell in love with all things health in the body and fitness and all of those things because of my own struggles. So I was an athletic child growing up. I was a competitive gymnast. And then after gymnastics, after high school, I really fell into a lot of struggles with my weight, with disordered eating, and really struggling with my body image and self-esteem. So then I went to school to learn all things that I could. My undergrad, I did a double major in exercise physiology and athletic training. So really just trying to understand the human body, to understand the impacts of nutrition and exercise. And then I went on to do my master's in health and human performance with a specialization in sports nutrition. So really trying to understand how to maximize our body's potential and whatnot, but really stemming from my own issues with disordered eating and struggles with my weight. So I was kind of doing it all backwards, but I think a lot of us do. When it comes to our weight, we're so hyper-focused on like wanting to be skinny or wanting to lose the weight. So we think that restriction is the answer. We think that don't eat anything, like including the protein, which we're going to go into today. And so I really struggled for a long time with that. And after I started to kind of put all that aside, the toxic diet culture, I was like, okay, wait. Let's go back to the basics. Let's go back to what you learned for 6 years in school. Like, what can we do for our bodies? So when I started to actually eat more protein, eat more of the right things, and you can still eat the pizza and you can still eat those things, but really prioritizing my nutrition and moving my body in a way that felt good to me is when I lost the weight. And it didn't even become about the weight anymore. It became about feeling healthy and feeling good mentally. I also struggled with a lot of mental health, a lot of anxiety. And when I really got my health under control, those things kind of subsided. So that's why I started what I started. And now as a busy mom, I've created quick at-home workouts because, we don't have a lot of time, and a nutrition, it's not even a program, it's just a nutrition philosophy that allows us to have that balance while still feeling good. So I know that was kind of a lot, but that's where I'm at now, helping other busy moms feel the best in their skin, helping you get strong at home while you're still able to have time with your little one. So that's really where my passion is at now.
And the best part is the name of the program. Can you share with them what it's called?
Yes. So it is called the Body Love Method. So I know for a fact every single woman listening to this has had a body image struggle at some point in her life. I could almost cry thinking about it. It's tough, especially we know all of the changes our bodies go through pregnancy and postpartum. And that's the biggest thing. I'm so glad I did this work on myself before getting pregnant and having a baby, because I've been able to take that postpartum and really have love and acceptance for my body. And I'm not saying it's easy to look in the mirror and love yourself. It takes time, but to realize that your weight doesn't equal your worth, to realize that that number on the scale could mean like literally nothing, that's really just the best part of this all. I don't care about the body image anymore. I care about feeling healthy and strong. And that's what I hope to support you guys with. So
yeah. So as you can tell, like if you are wanting to do this journey of learning to love your body again, like as a mom or whatever it is that's happening, if you have some kind of condition that you're dealing with that is meaning that you're putting on more pounds more easily, whatever it is, like Casey is here to support you. She's gone through it and she's continuing to support other people get to where she's at, right? Like I know for myself, like there's like this funny thing on Instagram. It's like, I wish I was as fat as I thought I was when I was in high school, right? Like,
yep, I've seen those. Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, like the way we see ourselves because of the media is like crazy, right? So I'm so glad that brands like American Eagle and whatever are really embracing like normal body sizes and actual curves, because we're not supposed to look like, you know, we have an eating disorder and name that as healthy. Like that's not what real bodies look like, unless that is actually your body. Like that's fine. But like, let's not strive for something that's unnatural for what our body is supposed to naturally look like. Right.
Yep.
Okay. So let's get into it. So I recently learned how important it is to eat protein. Now, I love my meat. Okay. So don't get me wrong. It's not that I don't eat protein, but I had no idea that it was so beneficial to eat a certain amount of protein for my body, even at breakfast time, which I have my own gripes about what they have available for breakfast or what they call breakfast, right? Like the sugary cereals, like French toast. I love to eat that stuff, right? But it's very carb heavy and not protein forward. And so when I first learned about how important protein was, I was like, how do you eat that much protein in one meal? Like, I don't get it. I feel like I'm just going to be stuffed. But as I started exploring different ways to incorporate protein into my breakfast, I felt like I wasn't crashing anymore. I had sustained energy and I felt like my mental clarity was back. And so I wanted to talk to you about it. Like, what is the science behind it all? And what is going on? Why do we need so much? What does it do? And why should people start really paying attention to what they're eating?
Yes. So I love talking about this. And I do want to preface, when we have this conversation, this is not to say that you need to go on a strict diet plan. You need to count calories. I just want to like put that out there, because I think women can hear this and be like, another thing I have to track, like now I have to get a food scale. Like you don't have to do that. We're going to give you some really easy tips and options to follow. Like it doesn't need to be complicated. So I just want to preface that. Don't feel overwhelmed.
Thank you. I don't use a food scale, by the way. So like when I say that, I'm just like making sure that I have a good amount of protein when I have breakfast, instead of just like, oh yeah, I'll just have a bowl of cereal and then crash a couple hours later.
And we'll talk about that too. Why a cereal is very different than having like eggs. We'll talk about the carbohydrate versus protein difference. So real quick, the science behind protein. Okay. And this once again could go so deep. I'm kind of just going to give the surface here. Protein contains amino acids. Amino acids are the building blocks of our cells. Okay. So if you were going to build a brick house, the amino acids are the bricks. Okay. We need those bricks to have functioning cells. So think about the cells that are everywhere in your body. If we're not having high functioning cells, we're not really optimized in performance, right? We're not thinking clearly, we're not moving clearly, etc. The other amazing thing about amino acids is that they produce neurotransmitters. And the two big neurotransmitters that a lot of us have heard of are serotonin and dopamine. Those are our happy, feel-good chemicals, right? Also increased energy, being able to sustain ourselves for a long time. I think a lot of us get overwhelmed with protein because we think about, at least I used to, because I was in the bodybuilding world and it was like protein, like meathead, like you got to put on like tons of pounds of muscle. And that's really not the case here. Think about protein as just, you need it to function well. Your brain needs it to be able to carry out the functions of your body, along with carbs and fats as well. But protein is really the building block. Those cells are going to work way better if we have those amino acids that we get from those proteins. Okay. So that's kind of the basis of why we need it. It can do a lot more too. It helps to reduce stress. It improves cognitive function. It can help balance our blood sugar levels. And that's kind of the part that I really want to talk about when it comes to nutrition, is balanced blood sugar. So what Michelle was sharing about, there's a big difference between eating a bowl of cereal in the morning versus eating a couple eggs with some sausage, with some grass-fed butter, etc. Okay. How deep do you, I want to like describe this, Michelle. I just don't want to take too much time. Real
Well,
quick.
okay. How about I share what happened to me, and then you
Okay.
can kind of just like go into that. So
Okay.
I would eat a bowl of cereal, and I'm not saying like sugary cereal, right? Like I would eat like relatively on the healthier side cereal. And even though I wasn't eating like Apple Jacks or whatever I enjoyed as a kid, I would still end up crashing. Like I would feel hypoglycemic. I would feel like my heart's racing. I felt hot and sweaty, and I'm like, what is happening? And I had no signs of it coming up at all. It would just hit me like that.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, like, oh my gosh, I'm famished. Like I need to eat something. And so can you tell us like what happened in that time between eating it and me crashing?
Yes. So when we eat primarily carbohydrates, and this can be any carbohydrates, like Michelle said, it wasn't even like she was just eating Fruit Loops. It's any carbs. And think of like I don't like to use the words good and bad, but more nutrient dense carbs like fruits and like fruits. If you eat a ton of fruit in the morning, you can also experience this crash. It won't be as prominent. But what happens is when we eat carbohydrates by themselves, we call it naked carbs. You are influxing your cells with this huge blood sugar spike. You're like bombarding your cells with glucose, okay? I don't want you to think glucose is bad. We still need it. Our carbs or our brain's primary energy source, we want to use glucose. So you do want it. However, when we eat it by itself, it just causes these huge spikes and then these big plummets in our blood sugar. So that's why breakfast is one of those things that I preach so heavily. Even if you're not hungry, I get it. It's like annoying, but it's going to help you have that stabilized energy throughout the entire day. It's going to reduce those afternoon cravings too. Like how many of us, we skip breakfast, we go for the coffee, we eat a sugary donut at noon, and then by 2 p.m. we're crashed and we have sugar cravings, so we binge all day, right? We can mitigate that just by eating a protein-forward breakfast. You can even still eat the Apple Jacks or the cereal, but let's throw some eggs and bacon or something on the side that's going to be protein focused to help mitigate that. So what happens when we pair a carb with a protein or a fat? It reduces that blood sugar spike. So instead of flooding your cells with just glucose, which is from the carbohydrates, that protein is going to be binding to it and your body is going to be digesting the protein, which takes longer. It takes longer to break it down. It does it in a slower way so your cells are not bombarded with this huge amount of glucose. So does that kind of answer your question?
Yes, no, that actually, I love that because I do follow you on Instagram. If you don't follow her, you need to follow her. Okay. And her information will be in the show notes, so go check her out. But I love how you preach about like, hey, you want to love your body more and, you want to feel better in your clothes. Doesn't mean giving up carbs.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I learned that it wasn't just about having more protein, but you could eat them together, that really helped me visualize how I can continue enjoying life. Because seriously, like food is my love language.
Yeah.
Okay. I just knew that, okay, I just have to have like a good amount of protein along with the carb. It's not that I need to avoid carbs, which is a really sad way to live because carbs are delicious.
Yep.
So now when I like make pasta dishes, I'm making sure that it's like got lots of ingredients to go with the carbs. Whereas, when you go to a restaurant, because they want to save money and make more money, they will give you a ton of carbs to fill you up and not very much protein or vegetables along with it. But we need to eat like the other way around, right? We need to be so generous with like the stuff in the sauce and be able to still enjoy the pasta, and you get full, right? So you may not want to go reach for more because you don't feel like, oh, what did I eat? Like I felt like it just went away and passed so quickly.
Yep. And that's a huge point, what you just said. When we have those carbohydrates, they are being utilized like very quickly, like we're bombarding the cells with that energy. It's not sustained energy. Of course, there's different types of carbohydrates that can give you that sustained energy, but things like pasta, when you're going out to eat, they give you the bread and then they give you the pasta. Why do you think we get home and we're sitting on the couch with our pants unbuttoned, right? Mm-hmm. There's no, like that's not giving us that sustained energy. There's no protein there to provide us with that nutrient density, I guess I should say. But I do like that you highlighted, you can still eat pizza, you can still eat pasta. Like I eat those things, guys, on a weekly or almost daily basis. Like I always have a sweet treat in bed, but I'm making sure to prioritize protein throughout the day. And we can kind of talk about like a sample if you want me to share of like what a day looks like. I just want people to realize it's not that hard to hit that much protein. So however, where do you want to go with this? Yeah.
I do want to add one thing because I've had to
changed, because as moms, we're always trying to like watch how we are teaching our kids through what we're doing, right? And so I recently started reframing how I talk about food, because the way we grew up, it was like, this is good, this is bad, this is healthy, this is junk. And so now instead of that, I'm like, okay, this is growing food and this is fun food. So like, let's have our growing food and then we can have our fun food. Like, because the priority is, like you said, nutrient dense food. It's kind of like, hey, after you do your chores, then you can have your privileges. But before that, then it's like, okay, like, let's make sure we're taking care of ourselves and optimizing our body and really setting it up for success before we go and really binge.
That's huge. I love the way you described that for kids, but also for us as adults. How many of us say good and bad food? So then we feel, this is just a huge part of my teachings in the Body Love Method. It's like, we can't keep going out for ice cream and calling ourselves bad, because then we think that something is wrong with us for eating the food. That's why you're like, if you struggle with the binge eating, the yo-yo dieting, guarantee you're staying stuck because you're labeling so many things as good as bad. Like, I was good all week. I ate salads. I was good. And then I was bad on the weekend because I had a slice of pizza, which means I suck, which means I failed, which means I have to start over and be strict again. Like, that's why we're looping. Versus, I'm enjoying this food at a physical level to feel strong and confident in my body, or I'm having fun with this. And like, I'm going out for drinks with the girls and it's fun. You need that too. Like, that's fulfilling as well. So I love that you talked about the verbiage, especially for kiddos. That's huge.
Yeah. Okay. So go ahead and share what a day in the life of how you eat and what you would recommend other people do if they are wanting to start this journey of really like reframing and taking a new look at how they approach nutrition.
Yeah, absolutely. So there is like calculations out there, because a lot of people, clients especially, will say, well, how much protein? Like, how many grams of protein should I be eating?
Macros, right? This is not like the hot...
This is, macros, counting your macros. And I was in that world for a while. I was in the bodybuilding world. I trained for shows, and you have to count calories in that world. Sure. You don't have to do that here. You don't have to count macros. If you were curious, the recommendation is 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. Okay. So for an 130-pound woman, that averages to like almost 50 grams of protein, I think, which is like, in my opinion, and what I've seen, actually kind of on the lower side.
Yeah, I was going to say.
So I try, and then there's another recommendation that's 1 pound of protein, or 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. So like 130 grams per 130 pound woman, which is very high.
That sounds a lot. Yeah. What I've heard is 30, like aim for 30 grams per meal.
Yes. So that's, I like to say, especially when you're starting out, between 20 and 30 grams per meal. And once again, like Michelle says, she doesn't own a food scale. Once you learn, you can just do a quick Google search to understand how much protein is in certain things. It becomes seamless. Like 4 ounces of pretty much any meat, chicken, turkey, steak, is going to be between like 28 and 32 grams. 4 ounces of chicken is not a lot, guys. It's like the size of my hand. That's easy. I could eat double that. So let's just walk through a quick day of really easy sample eating. So breakfast, guys, if you don't eat it, I understand a lot of us are on the go, but that's not an excuse. It just comes down to what you want. Do you want increased energy? Do you want to feel stabilized with your mood all day? Do you want to feel good in your body? Like, if you want those things, we just got to suck it up and eat the breakfast, right? I have on-the-go options I can share. You can do protein smoothies. You can do overnight oats. You can do like pre-made egg sandwiches on the road. There's options. We just got to prioritize it. So breakfast, a couple eggs with some egg whites, with some turkey sausage or bacon, whatever meat of choice. If you like meat, we can also talk about plant-based if there are people plant-based. I eat 2 slices of bread every morning. I still have those carbs, but I'm eating eggs, egg whites, and some sausage. So that's my breakfast. Then I try to have a morning snack, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, a beef stick, some peanut butter with some crackers, like just something to have a little bit more protein. Cottage cheese and Greek yogurt, guys, are like chef's kiss for protein sources. They're lower in fat and a lot of protein really fast. So yogurt with granola and berries, great. Lunch, I'm having 4 ounces of chicken. Once again, don't measure it. Just give yourself a normal portion of chicken. Chicken with some veggies and some rice. Maybe I will have like, I don't know, just something fun in there too. Like I'll have some pretzels on the side, or I'll eat, I don't know, a cookie. Like I still eat those things on a daily basis. Afternoon snack, once again, rotate through cottage cheese, beef stick, hard-boiled eggs, like just some sort of little bit of protein. For me, at least, I need snacks because I am not making it with just 3 meals. But that's why I'm sharing those. And then dinner, again, 4 ounces of ground turkey. I make turkey burgers a lot. Or maybe you have some steak, or maybe you have more chicken again, but you make it into like an Italian dish, and then some sort of grain on the side, pasta, quinoa, rice, vegetables, sweet potatoes, fried potatoes, anything, and another vegetable. And that's it, guys. Like it's really not complicated. Once you learn the protein sources, animal products, and then if you're plant-based, nuts, seeds, legumes, quinoa, just put them at each meal. That's really what I tell my girls is like, just pick one from the box and put it at each meal. Does that sound good?
Yeah, no, that was great. So like, just from listening to it, you're like, oh, that's it. Like that's pretty easy. Right. Mm-hmm. And I love that you said Greek yogurt, because I love to add that to like my kids' smoothies for added protein. I also sometimes use Greek yogurt as a substitute for like heavy whipping cream in sauces, right?
Yeah.
There's like this cilantro lime chicken dish that I put Greek yogurt in to sub for the heavy cream. And it's like still delicious, still creamy, but added protein in the sauce. Like how awesome is that, right? So you don't have to like think about going on a health journey to look like, oh, I can only eat kale and quinoa and beans and, like all vegetables and lean meats. It's like, that's not what she's saying.
Right. 100%. Oop, are you still there? Oh,
you can still enjoy food.
Yes. And that is how once again, it's not about weight loss, but if you are on that weight loss journey, I'm telling you, as somebody who struggled with the same 20 pounds for over 10 years, once I ditched the diets, I lost those 20 pounds and like way quicker than I did over the last 10 years, because I was like, I'm not, you know what? I like pizza. I'm eating pizza. I'm not restricting, but it's really what you do. I know it's cliche, but the 80-20, it's what you do 80% of the time. If you're eating so nutrient dense throughout the day, you're eating breakfast 30 to 60 minutes within waking, you're doing a movement that you enjoy, and you're eating protein throughout the day, along with veggies, making sure you're getting your fiber, like giving your body real food. It doesn't matter if you eat snacks in the bed. Like that doesn't touch your progress, because you're really providing your body with those nutrients. And I'm telling you, from a weight loss perspective, it will happen so much easier if you stop restricting yourself and you give yourself that freedom. So just putting that out there if that's a goal of yours.
Yeah, I love that. So you said something that I've heard before, which is to eat breakfast within 30 to 60 minutes of waking. Now, as a mom with school-aged children, the kids need to leave at a certain time. And so I've gotten accustomed to eating after drop-off, because otherwise I have to wake up at an hour I don't wish to wake up. Yeah. So what is the impact of eating maybe 2 hours after I wake up?
So the big thing with eating breakfast first thing is the effects that it's going to have on stabilizing your blood sugar. And that's really what we talked about: increased energy, decreased crashing, decreased sugar cravings, etc. So eating first thing, and once again, a protein forward breakfast, not eating just a tortilla in the morning or like a donut or granola bar, which I also say, like, convenience, I get it. Like a granola bar is easy to grab and go, but that's going to have that detrimental effect on your blood sugar if there's no protein in it. The 2 hours waiting is really just what we kind of talked about. It's just it could potentially decrease your optimization with the blood sugar levels, if that makes sense. Yeah. If you don't feel the effects, like if you're feeling good, and this is why I say this is not black and white, guys. You have to do what feels best for you. Of course, I want to see you doing that for yourself, but if you're feeling okay, like Michelle, I know you're prioritizing protein. You just hopped on this podcast after a walk. Like you're doing those things for your body. If you don't feel a difference, fine. But I noticed for myself, I wasn't making as many gains in my fitness. Like I'm like on a mission to feel really strong right now and like lift heavier weights. And I have these goals. I was getting more tired at night, and I wasn't seeing those changes. So just play with it. Okay. But I want to say there's on the go options. Like you can make overnight oats and eat them in the car. You can make a protein smoothie the night before and bring it in the car. I have pre-made egg like burritos that I make, or egg breakfast sandwiches. You leave them in the freezer and then you just pull one out the night before. So there are things that you can do. Another thing I do is I put protein powder in my decaf coffee in the morning, because I wake up early and I like get my work done for the day, and I'm not ready to eat my big old breakfast at 4:45 or 5 a.m. So I'm pouring protein powder in my decaf coffee, which is 20 to 30 grams right off the bat. So don't feel like you can't do things. It's just kind of like taking the time to get ourselves there. You know what I mean?
And thank you for saying that, because this is just another example of how we know to do certain things for our kids, but we don't think to do them for ourselves, because I batch make protein waffles for my kids.
Okay.
And then I freeze them so that on school mornings, we just pop them in the toaster oven, and then they're ready to go, so that I'm not making them every single morning, because that's like a whole process. And so now I've got to think, okay, now what do I do for myself? Because I want to walk in the morning before I start work. What can I do that's super easy to just reheat?
Yep. Think of those grab and go options. And I mean, just eat the protein waffles you make for your kids. Make some extras. Like you can probably eat those too.
Yeah. I'm like,
and what works for you? Like hard boiled eggs, guys, that's great. I mean, I know some people don't like eggs, but that's an easy one. Like I said, a smoothie, protein powder in your coffee. I also want to make this clear. Don't supplement protein powder at every single meal. That's not going to be the best form of protein, but it does contribute to my overall protein, and it gives me something to have first thing. So use it how you want to in your nutrition.
And for those people who don't like hard-boiled eggs like me, I actually maybe like last year or 2 years ago, came across a Korean boiled egg recipe. I'm going to butcher the name because I don't know how to say it correctly, but it looks like Mayak, I don't know, Mayak. Look it up, okay? It's marinated, soft boiled eggs. And I eat it over rice and just top it with like either roasted seaweed or green onions. And it is so delicious. It's savory and slightly spicy.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. It is incredible, especially when you cut into the egg and it's all jammy and it's like spilling all over the rice. Oh my gosh. Anyway, I'm going to make that again. Because
I'm going to have to look that up. That sounds good.
So delicious. I'll send you the recipe.
Okay.
Or I'll just link the recipe in this episode. But anyway, you had mentioned before this call how important it is to prioritize yourself as a busy mom. Now, when I met you, you were not pregnant and you weren't even married yet. And now you're a mom, like a whole mom. So what has that been like? Because I know you've always been about self-care and loving yourself. And now that you're a mom, what has that transition been like now that you actually have your teachings to apply to your own real life?
Yeah, I think it really put all of the work that I had done to the test, because motherhood changes you in a way that nothing else can, in the best ways, but also in the most challenging ways. And I think, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, I'm so glad that I had gone through the journey I had and done the work before becoming a mom, because it would have made it that much more difficult. And I can really relate. We all know those changes that we go through, not just physically, but mentally. And I think the physical is one thing, learning to love your body after you have a soft belly, you have stretch marks, you have bigger hips, like all of that, of course, is one facet. But the other facet was really learning how to still prioritize myself. When you have a kid, when you have a baby, they require all of you, especially in those early, like that first year. And I'm still in it. My baby, she's going to be 9 months in a week. So I'm still in the thick of it. That really was challenging, as to how can I still prioritize myself? How can I still have my me time? How can I still have an identity outside of being a mom? And I love the identity I have as a mom. I am so in it and I love it so much. But I also in the beginning lost a huge part of myself because I couldn't move my body for a little bit. I wasn't able to show up for my business because I was caring for a baby, right? So I think the biggest thing was carving out little pockets. And I'm talking little pockets, guys, like 1 to 5 minutes where I just can like take a deep breath and think about who I am and take time for self-care. And now that I can work out, I'm cleared and, I'm back into being able to move my body. My workout time, and I'm not talking crazy workout, it could be a walk. That is like my me time, even if she's sitting right there, because she's usually like always, if you guys see my videos, she's like always right there. It's still my me time to move my body, to reset my mental health. I think learning how to manage it is the biggest challenge, but it's also been a really great opportunity for me to stand in what I teach of prioritizing yourself and making time for you, because we all know you can't pour from an empty cup. And whatever it is for you, it doesn't have to be exercise, it doesn't have to be going on a walk, but we have to figure out how to get that time. Whether you can lean on your partner or not, like we have to figure that out. That's just so important. I cannot stress enough your mental health as a mother.
And, as kids get older, when they start talking, when they're in school, like they become, they're finding their independence. And sometimes it's not so fun for the parent. And for me, when I wasn't moving my body because I just told myself I was too busy, or I just didn't feel motivated because I didn't grow up as an athlete, right? And I wasn't careful about what I was eating. I was just kind of treating myself through food, right? Like, okay, well, I'm just going to do some emotional eating. I found that my capacity to handle their challenges was so low. And I didn't end up liking the kind of mom that I was being. Not to mention my libido like disappeared when I did that too.
Yeah.
Now looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, why did I do that? Why did I let it get to that point? But it kind of just happens sometimes. It's not like you're consciously making a decision. I want to be that kind of mom. I want to be that kind of partner that isn't present for their family. But as someone who's gone to the other side now, and I see the vast difference of not taking care of your health, mental and physical, I never want to go back to that place. And so that's why I'm so excited to have you here, Casey, to just share with the listeners here just how important it is from a scientific point. Like, hey, this is what's happening in your body. Like, if you want to feel your best, you literally have to do certain things to help yourself feel your best. It's not just about, oh, do self-care and, all this like fluffy things that you may be hearing. There's actual tangible things that you could be doing to set yourself up for success.
100%. Guys, this isn't just like a woo-woo thing of like, take deep breaths, meditate, move your body. That's not just like the new age woo-woo stuff that you could feel good. There's actual scientific research behind. Like, as I was getting ready for this podcast, I was actually going back into my old school stuff and looking at research. There are so many studies about the effects that exercise have on anxiety and depression. The way that it can decrease those things. If you struggled with postpartum anxiety or depression, first of all, you're not alone. Nothing is wrong with you. There are like chemical changes going on in your brain. Something that can help mitigate and change those chemical changes is exercise. And this is not like, this has nothing to even do with weight loss. Like, let's put that away for a second. Movement is medicine for your body. And you don't need to go out and be a CrossFit athlete. You do not need to work out for 2 hours a day. You got to just go on a 10-minute walk, right? Can you stretch for 10 minutes? Can you do these things? And once again, self-care looks different for everybody. I'm just kind of taking it from that scientific standpoint, Michelle. Moving your body is just one of the best things that you can do. And whatever it looks like for you, and I know it's hard as busy moms. In the beginning, after I was obviously, healed from pushing a baby out, I just went on walks. I strapped her to me. And guys, she's always with me. I don't have a lot of time where she's not, and I love it, but we have to figure out how to make it work. So many of us close our eyes and be like, I don't have an hour to myself. I'm never not with the kids, or there's always extracurriculars going on. You got kids' sports games. Can you walk up and down the sidelines to move your body? Can you stand on the side and do some exercise? Like, what can you do? How can you prioritize you in these moments of motherhood? It makes a difference. And we can still go into the exercise, like the actual benefits it has, but it's really just prioritizing your mental health. It makes such a difference. And you'll be a better mom if you can be emotionally regulated. Like you were saying, Michelle, you didn't like the mom that you had become. When we're dysregulated, guys, we are not fun to be around. Like, when you're hungry, when you are sleep deprived, when you don't have time for yourself, and then a little kid is going to come up and touch you, you're going to snap. Right? So what are things that you can do to regulate yourself? And I'm talking little things, not big, grandiose things. 5 minutes of breath work, 5 minutes of sitting in silence, moving your body, eating enough food, right? What is it? You're not you when you're hungry? Snickers? I mean, don't eat a Snickers isn't going to be the best thing for you. But it's really about how can you be regulated so that you're not snapping at your kids, you're not snapping at your partner. How you can be the best mom for yourself is prioritizing self-care, like plain and simple.
Yeah. And I love how you showed examples of being creative and how you exercise. Like, you know what? It's actually really good for the baby to be outdoors, to get that fresh air in instead of just being cooped up inside. Mm-hmm. Because I was one of those moms, and I think I did have postpartum depression. I just didn't know it because it didn't look like what I thought it was. Mm-hmm. I was still able to get out of bed and whatnot. I just wasn't very motivated to do much. And I really lost myself. And one thing that I want to do here, I'm new to the city that I'm in, so I don't have a very large network or like close friends, because it takes time to build friendships. But one thing that could be good, that would inspire other moms around you, is like, hey, can we carpool? I'll do this day, you do that day, so that you guys can take turns helping each other have that time to yourselves, because it does make a huge difference. And even if you don't have that, right? I feel like we put this pressure to be available for our kids way more than they actually need. And even if they complain, they're only complaining because that's what they've gotten used to. It's not necessarily what they need. And that's their routine. So just like how it takes time for us to establish a habit, 21 days, I believe, it's just about training them and setting your boundaries. And boundaries doesn't have to be like a mean thing that you're doing. It's just like, hey, this is what mom needs to feel her best, to be present with you when I'm with you, instead of just like irritable all the time and getting mad at kids for being kids, which is an awful thing to feel like you're doing, is getting mad at them just for being kids, right? And they will get used to that. But we have to be able to tolerate the initial discomfort of them being like, wait a minute, where'd you go? Like, why are you disappearing on me? Or like maybe they're nonverbal and they're crying, right? So I think if we can truly anchor into, no, this is for the good of the family, and my why is stronger than what I'm temporarily experiencing, that is the key. Just know that they're not going to be like that the entire time. And this is for them as well as for you, but it is also beneficial to them.
I love that you just shared that. That's so huge. And you have children that are obviously older than mine, but that was put so perfectly. Like, it might be temporarily uncomfortable because they have gotten accustomed to having their needs, immediately met. And of course, take care of your kids, guys, but you also need to take care of you. And that is it just becomes routine. And like I said, it's not easy. Like, my baby is sitting on the ground, or she's sitting in her thing, pretty much whining through my whole workout. She's fed, she's like good, but she's like, I want to play with mom, but mom needs time to work out. So she's fine sitting there for a few minutes being frustrated. Like you said, it might be temporarily uncomfy for your kids to be like, where are you, mom? Why are you getting to do this? But once they become accustomed to it, that's just the routine, right? And another thing that I think goes way deeper than we think, they're going to grow up learning how to prioritize themselves because they watched mom prioritize themselves.
Yes.
And yes, it's a boundary. It might be uncomfortable at first, but they're going to be, when they eventually have kids or when they go off to college, they're going to know the importance of self-care, prioritizing themselves and boundaries because they watched you do it.
Absolutely.
And that far outweighs, I feel, in my personal opinion, any temporary discomfort that might come with that.
Yeah, that's kind of like if you say, oh, my kids complain about doing chores, so you just don't let them do it. And then what? Like, they don't have the skills to be a fully functioning independent adult when they're growing up, right? So it's like same thing. It's good for them to experience healthy frustration because then they get to understand how to deal with it. If we're always catering to their every need, that's how we make entitled kids, right? No one wants an entitled kid. Nobody likes that. And so we have to really be honest with how are we raising our kids and what are our actions doing to contribute to how they're going to become as adults. And yeah, I totally get the discomfort. Okay. It's way easier to like hand my daughter who loves to scream really loud. Like, I'm talking like the highest decibel possible. It's much easier to just like be like, you know what, just have the candy, just stop, right? But I know that that's not going to teach her, hey, you're not always going to get your way, and you're going to have to figure out how to manage your anger without being mean and screaming in someone's face. And so I'm just going to have to be that parent who's like, okay, this is temporary, take a deep breath and just let her go through it. And so this is just another piece to that. Whether they're a baby or they're older, you get to take care of yourself because your family literally needs you at your best, period. So even if they can't see the long-term vision that you have to be like, nope, I'm in charge. I know that this is good for us, and I'm going to hold to that.
Yes, that last thing, hold to it. It's tough, guys. Even if you don't have kids yet, like, I think about how hard it is to get into a routine of doing things that might suck at first, but they make a difference, right? Waking up a little bit earlier, eating foods that make you feel good, not scrolling on your phone. Those are things that are difficult to create the habit habits, excuse me. And now you got kiddos who are not used to it. Like, it's going to be hard, but commit to it. Like, get a mom friend, get your partner if you have one. Like, how can you get other people on board to help you anchor this in? Because like Michelle said, moms, you deserve that too. And it's going to make everything in your life better if you can take care of you. Because I think a lot of the frustration and almost resentment that can happen sometimes too in the family unit comes from you as a mom not getting to do anything for yourself, right? So I think it's just, I know it's difficult at first, but think about the benefits that could happen if you just implemented 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes into your day for you.
Yes.
Huge.
And I know this is about health, but I want to piggyback off of what you said, because a lot of my clients, when they first come to me, they're like so burned out, so resentful towards their partner. And the biggest reason is because they are not carving out time for themselves, because they think that there's so much to do and they don't think to delegate it out, to hire out, or, you know, like work with their partner to figure out how to rebalance the load, while their spouses are like, oh, I need to take care of myself. I'm going to go play golf. I'm going to play tennis. Like, they're unapologetic about it.
Yes.
And while I think that both sides can learn from each other, like, you know, maybe they can lean into partnership a bit more and make decisions together on when they go, we need to also learn from them and be like, oh, I have a need. Let me go meet it. Let me do something about that. And so really the anger should be redirected to yourself and taking a look at, where have I been neglecting myself and not giving myself permission to be as equally important as my partner.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want you to take a look at that. How unapologetic is your spouse when it comes to doing things for themselves, and how do you handle it? Or do you put all the onus on yourself of taking care of the family, taking care of the house, and you're like, I don't have time. Okay, that's because you created your schedule to be like that. Like, you are literally the boss of your own schedule. So what can you do with that? What can you scale back on? Okay, because you are not going to be your best self if you're like, oh, my sons and my daughters want to do all these activities, so I must say yes because I want to nurture their hobbies. Okay, but who are you after shuttling all of them to all those things every single day? Like, you have to consider what you can handle in addition to having time for yourself.
That was so good. I got to re-listen to that. It's the unapologeticness that why it's just such a night and day difference. Why is it so easy for them to be like, yeah, I got to go play golf, or I'm going to be at the gym a little later today. Like, they're not rushing home like I would be if I was there. Oh my God, I've hit an hour. I've got to get back because I know the dishes have to be done, and then I have to get her here, and then I have to go make these returns. It's like, where can we look at ourselves? Like Michelle said, we got to take ownership. We've created it. We've made the schedule most of the time. Of course, there are going to be things out of our control, but what can you control? And how can you be unapologetic? I have to take that to heart because I'm not struggling with that, but we go through it of like,
yeah, same.
Everything revolves around the kids. And why do we not feel like we can be a part of like the top of the totem pole? Because you can be. And it just takes that initial 10, 20 minutes to look at your schedule and figure out how we're going to reblock it, and then actually following through with it, because it's going to make a difference. And that's huge. I love that you said that. I got to prioritize that for myself.
Yeah. And you're going to have more capacity to connect with your partner too. Because how many of you listeners are out there at the end of the night after the kids are in bed and you're like, don't touch me. I'm too tired. I need to sleep. Like, okay, is this the marriage that you envisioned for your partner and for yourself? Like, oh yeah, hey, by the way, after we have kids, we're going to stop having sex. Okay? Like, I don't think you ever saw that for yourself, because at one point that was a really exciting part of your life. And now it's like, sorry, well, that's not really fair to your marriage. So let's take a look at where you're giving too much and work with your partner. Okay, what do we have going on this week? How can we, like, who's going to do what, so that we can each have our days or our moments to care for ourselves. And it doesn't even have to mean you leaving the house. It could just mean like, hey, you're on kid duty. I'm going to go sit in the room by myself in silence. Like, it doesn't really matter what you're doing. Just do it for yourself.
Yep. Prioritization, having those discussions, even if they're uncomfy at first. Two things I want to highlight. First thing, what you said, did you, before you had kids, guys, did you envision your motherhood journey to be one full of resentment and stress and frustration? I know that I wouldn't have signed up to have a kid if that's who I was going to become, right? Resentful towards my partner, resentful towards my kids, hating that I have no time for myself. So how can we take our power back in these situations? And I never want to discount the trials of motherhood. It's tough. I'm not saying that it's like, oh, it's so easy to have a baby. It's not. But think about why you had kids. Like, do you want to be that fun mom? Do you want to be that fun partner where you guys have these life moments that you wanted together, right? That comes from prioritizing yourself. So that's really important. I love that you said that. And then the second thing, are certain things in your life really a priority? Are the dishes a priority? Is cleaning the house a priority at the end of the night when mom needs time to just lay in bed and scroll on her phone or connect with your partner? Like, I get it. I love a clean house. I love for these things to be taken care of, but it's more important for me to get my workout in than it is for me to unload the dishwasher. So coming down to decisions that you're making throughout the day, really figure out where your prioritization of you fits in and choose it, and keep choosing it. It makes a difference.
And I know you only have a almost 9-month-old, but I want you listeners to remember that parenting happens in seasons. Okay. Right now, it's just her and her husband. That's it. They are in charge of childcaring and maintaining the house. But as your kids get older, they can start taking on some of the responsibilities. So don't be afraid to lean on them, because that is a way that they're practicing on how to be an adult. Okay. So now I've got my son unloading the dishwasher for me. That's part of his chore. He's got to pack his own snack for school. He's got to fill up his own water bottle. Think about what they can do on their own and let them, because they will feel proud to accomplish things for themselves, to feel more independent, like they've got their own thing going. Okay. So even if you've got a baby and you're like, okay, all of these things are on us, let your standards lower if that means your mental state will be higher. Okay.
Yeah.
Because it will change. You're not in this phase forever. I had to talk to my husband about the mess level, right? When kids play, they play hard, and it looks like a freaking hurricane went through my toy room and leaking into the living room. But you know what? They're playing. They're healthy. They're happy. They will get to the point where they're going to be able to maintain it. And there is going to be a point where you're going to miss the noise. So what can you tolerate? How can you help yourself grow that tolerance and choose your battles, right?
Yep. Huge. It comes down to, guys, you just got to take the time to sit down and say, what do I want to change? Why? What's your why here? For me, I don't want to be stressed out. I don't want to be angry. I don't want to be resentful. I want to feel good in my skin. I want to feel strong. I want to be a confident mom who's in control. I don't want to feel like life is controlling me. And it takes action to become her, though. It's not just easy. All of a sudden you can wake up and be her. So take that tough love conversation, figure out what you need to do, because nothing's going to change if nothing changes, and you have to be that change. So it's tough, but choose your tough with it, right?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being a guest. I knew that this episode was going to be amazing because I just love you. And I know you always have so many great nuggets to share with people. So thank you for coming here. Before I let you go, can you share with us where people can find you? And also, I have a fun question to ask you after that.
Okay. You guys can find me on Instagram is where I'm most active. My handle is @CaseyRoseCoaching. My website is Casey Rose Coaching as well. I have a lot of freebies to offer, guys. I show up on stories pretty consistently. I have free workouts. I have free nutrition stuff. Please come say hi. If you need help, message me. My goal, my vision is to help moms feel confident and strong in their bodies. Just if you're struggling, if you need help, please reach out, and I'm here to support you.
Love it. Okay. So for fun, let's see. Okay, because this is very relevant to what I've been watching lately, I'm going to ask you, what's your favorite trashy TV show?
So we just watched Love Island, which was the biggest mistake of my life, because there's 40 episodes and they're all an hour long, and then you're in it and you got to stick with it. But if I could say one recommendation, don't watch it. So that's the latest trashy TV show I've watched. Before that, we really weren't having time to watch TV, but that's what I would say I just watched. But it was ridiculous. I don't recommend.
Okay. I just finished watching Love is Blind UK version.
Ooh,
So
okay.
that was very interesting because I've seen the US ones,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like the quality of the relationships of the couples that developed in the UK version were so much higher than the ones in the US.
Really?
And I'm very curious to kind of like figure out why that is. I don't know if it's a cultural thing, or what, like, I don't know. Do they do the show differently? Even though it looks the same. I don't know. I just felt like the seasons that were based in the US, there weren't as many quality couples. So I'm like, y'all are not going to work out. And there were very few like weddings that went through with it. Whereas the UK one, there were like quite a lot of weddings that, So I was like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder why that is.
That is interesting. And I wonder, like you said, if it's something cultural, are relationships different in different parts of the world? I mean, I watched the American season. I did watch that last year of Love is Blind. And
it's like a dumpster fire.
Yes, like a dumpster fire. And I'm like, what are we doing? So I'd be very curious to watch the UK and see if it's, like you said, like more meaningful connections, good conversation. It's so interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if it's because a lot of the ones that make it through in the American one are really just there to be on TV for fame, for clout, like, I don't know.
I think that's a huge thing with all these shows, The Bachelor, Love is Blind, Love Island. I think there's so much now. The world of influencers is, it's crazy. You can make a living that way. And I think a lot of these people see that. So maybe that is different in different parts of the world.
Yeah, it's sad though.
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm like, of course we need trashy TV, and I started watching it because I needed to decompress in the bed. But then I'm like 20 episodes in, and I'm like, I am like getting dumber by watching this. So I was like, this is no longer regulating me. This is just making me feel stupid. So,
well, I'm so glad you have that awareness, because it's very easy to just continue to get sucked in. So. Sure. Well, thank you again, Casey. If you have loved what you heard, feel free to listen again and again, and share this with other people that you think would benefit from hearing this. And for sure, go connect with Casey. She has so many amazing resources that she has out there ready for you to get started with. And of course, send her a message. She's always so happy to help other people, and she's super friendly, if you can't already tell from listening to this episode. And thanks for listening all the way to the end. Please rate and review if you love this, and I'll catch you back here on the next episode. Bye.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course.
That's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. If you did, please send me a message over on Instagram at Michelle Perta Coaching to let me know what you loved most about it. Hearing from my listeners is my absolute favorite. And if you've been loving this podcast, please leave a rating and review. This will help people like you find the show and get the help they need. Catch you here on the next episode. Bye.